Hello and welcome. This is Oz by Drone and I'm Greg, and normally we'd have John in the seat today, but a couple of minutes before showtime he was trying to get on to the remote video session and it wasn't working for him today. But our special guest that we have today has volunteered to be our substitute co-host. So welcome, Greg Hilton.
Hi Greg, how you going? Hi everyone.
Hi Greg. So we got two Gregs, G1 and G2, something like that today.
Haunting memories.
Yeah, look, B1 and B2, yeah, it's definitely some memories for you on that one. So for those who haven't spoken to Greg before in our chat room, Greg is a regular here on the channel. He's also someone who has worked in the television industry for many years. For I think 20 years as a ABC television cameraman.
Yep, that's about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
22,
so
I think it was.
Yeah. So Greg
started in '74, finished in '96.
Okay. Okay, that's a long time. So Greg's come in today. He was going to just do a guest spot talking about how to translate the kind of TV world cameraman thinking into flying with a drone. But as I said, we had a bit of trouble with John's video coming in today, so we'll have Greg around for a little bit longer. So just getting started. So tell me, Greg, I would normally ask John, what have you been up to today? So Greg, what have you been up to this week?
Yeah, so I had a little bit of family dramas going on, but apart from that, I've been buried on the computer mainly, just trying to edit and rescue stuff and watch everybody else and see what's happening out there. I'm almost a full-time occupation keeping up with what's going on in the community, but yeah.
Social media can be an occupation.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, so in terms of what I've been up to this week, I was at the D1 store this week, so I'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. We had a competition last week and it had a prize from the D1 store, but let me come back to that in a minute. Just one more quick comment about our people helping with the show today. We've got Mel, who is controlling the chat messages that are coming on screen. Now, I don't know, you would remember Graham Kennedy from Blankety Blanks, I'm sure.
Yes.
Yeah. He had Peter the Phantom Puller who would pull the things over. So we've got Mel the Phantom Trucker today as our title person. So thanks, Mel, for being part of the team today. So be nice to Mel in the chat. If you've got anything that you do want to ask us during the course of the show and you want to get our attention, use a hashtag question in the chat room and we'll make sure that Mel will get that up on the screen. Anyway, a couple of things. So starting with last week's show, we had a prize pack that we gave away, I mentioned a moment ago. Let's just put up a quick little video clip about that. So Dave, there's your prize pack.
Lovely.
Compliments of D1 store.
Thank you, D1. Thank you, Greg.
See ya.
Cheers. That's enough.
That's enough. So yeah, Dave was reluctant to get on camera, but that was fine. It was just handing that over to him. And it was nice to meet someone face to face who's part of our chat room and our community here. So with regard to competitions, we've got another competition this week, again giving the same thing away, which is the D1 prize pack. It's a hat and a backpack. So this week, what I'm going to ask you to do during the video today, keep this window open, but open another window on the side. Have a look at the very first video in the AusByDrone channel. And what I want you to do is make a comment on the video, click thumbs up on the video, but there's one other thing that you've got to do to win the prize pack, and you've got to tell me what time is it on the screen where we've got the one and only edit in the video where it goes from one shot to another shot. So what's the time of the first edit? The first person who gets that time and posts it in the chat and like and comment in the video, Mel will put their comment up on the screen, and they're the winner for today. Okay, so on to the news. So first things first, just want to thank Jeff Sills. Jeff is doing a lot of great work for Ken Heron's show, and also we're sharing it here. So that information is dji.retroroms.info/news/current. Every week that'll be updated with the news that Jeff is pulling together. We use some of that information. We get some other stuff, and actually Greg has greatly provided some really, really good stuff this week. So thank you very much for that, Greg.
No worries, mate.
So our first one we're going to have a look at is a Mavic going swimming. Everyone's seen, aircraft go in the drink from time to time, but what was unusual about this one was the fact that it was in Alaska. So, yeah, it's very, very cold. So for a start, it's amazing that the guy jumped in at all, but what's even more amazing is that the drone survives. Let's have a quick peek at that.
Oh, God.
Well, guys, I was not planning on vlogging today, but I just dumped my drone into the drink. It's up at Bear Creek Fish Weir. The creek is plugged with salmon right now, and I was trying to get that money shot like I always do. And
so this is a vlog that the guy who does this does a regular vlog. And he's gone and obviously lost that and gone in the drink, but he wants to be a little bit creative and find out how can he actually get it working again. Everyone's tried the rice solution. Everyone's heard about that many times. But what he tries is the vacuum cleaner solution. So he's going and draining the drone and seeing if he can rescue it and get it working again that way. So we'll just fast forward a little bit so that we can see the end outcome of this. Actually, we'll wait just a little bit just so you can see him.
The battery also needs to be dried out.
Diana said if I end up needing the insurance, it's either $0 or $100 deductible. And
Okay.
I just call her and let her know. She'll submit the claim and they'll cut us a check.
All right, that's worst case scenario. I'd still have hope.
I don't.
What? The patient is not doing that bad.
The patient drowned.
I am working on CPR here, hun. You remember how I fixed that generator?
And then it broke a few minutes later.
Hey, just for the record, this here is what a little cute tattletale looks like. As soon
so we'll just
as
cut
the
forward.
drone
There's
took a swim.
We'll fast forward that. To cut a long story short, he perseveres with it.
That's pretty damn impressive. The Mavic Pro can take a swim and recover to fly another day. I don't think anybody will argue that this drone is now damaged goods, and probably not the best thing to rely on for YouTube video production. So I'm pretty confident we're going to get another one, and this will become a backup. But if you enjoyed this video, we are about to drive around the world in a 4x4 adventure truck and just do all kinds of mind-blowing stuff and fly our drone the entire way, at least in the countries where it's allowed. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. But now,
so that was the video on that one from Alaska. I've put a link in the description to that material, so do have a look at that in your own time over there. I'm just having a look at some stuff in the chat here, and it's telling me that there is no video going to air, which is very confusing because I can see it here. So let's do this. I'm just going to go to my console here. and go to today's YouTube show link, and I'll press that, and it says waiting for Oz by drone. Huh. So here's the good news, Greg. We're recording this.
Yeah. In God we trust. Yeah, it'll happen. I had that the other day. I was trying to watch, I think, Billy Kyle, I think it was. And yeah, he was on live and it just said waiting for. And about 60 seconds later, it flipped over and video was there.
Okay, so I'm just going to go to Customize Channel, Create a Studio. I'm going to go and press some buttons in here and see what happens, because live streaming, events, edit. Here we go. This is YouTube on the fly. I shouldn't press edit. I should press live control room. Stream status, 720p stream is good. The health is good. So why didn't it start it? So here we go. So apologies to you, my friend.
No worries, mate. Just back it up and do it again.
No, what I'll do, here we go. Okay, here we go. Okay, to those in the chat room, we are finally live, I think. Now, I'm going to share with you what happened. We pressed the go live button in Wirecast, but for some reason YouTube didn't pick that up. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave this show up in its current form. It will go live in this form. But the beginning part of the show, I'll upload that as a separate clip. And the reason why I want to do it that way, I like to keep the chat messages intact. So we'll keep that together. So I'll just get you to confirm. Are we up? Yes, we are. Okay, I'm not going to start over. I'm going to go and send the other bit as a separate clip later. I'm not going to join them together. We'll be all good. So let's move on. So for people, what you've missed, John did want to be here today. He had some technology challenges trying to get into Rendezvous, and I had a black screen from him. I had no audio from him, so we couldn't get John in. We've got Greg Hilton here. Greg was going to be our guest today. Greg is from, well, he's retired now, but he was a ABC cameraman for many years and certainly has some experience behind the camera. And we were going to chat to him just about his experience and how that translates to drone use, but he's our fill-in co-host for the day. Thanks again, Greg.
No worries, mate.
Okay,
Yeah.
John, by the way, I saw John Morrison's in the chat room. John, if you do want to try and rejoin via Rendezvous while we're live here today, by all means do that. And again, apologies for technical problems. It's almost like we should have some odds on the show going well.
That'd be an easy bet, that one.
Okay, look, we're going to move on. I'm going to get back to my computer over here and I'm going to press that button, that button. We've already had the first story, then we'll move on to... Okay, so that's our second story today. Now, we saw a clip this week about some testing of drones in Chula Vista, which is in California in the US. But essentially, this is some testing, not of the technology, but more so of the processes and how can they write regulations around it. And I just see John is trying to rejoin, so I'll let my panel operator see if she can get that in over there. But while that happens, let's talk for 20 seconds because she can't get that in and play the video at the same time. No, it didn't work. It failed again. Let's play the video. Go for it, Sophia.
You reporting first at 6.
The federal government hand-picked San Diego and Chula Vista last month to help figure out the future of commercial drones. Before drones start flying overhead with packages and food deliveries, though, Chula Vista is helping develop some new rules for the sky.
Yeah, and 10 News reporter Jared Aarons is live in Chula Vista this morning to show us how the program could bring more money and jobs to town. Good morning, Jared.
Good morning, Jason, Virginia. This whole area behind me, 375 acres, stretches over that little hill and almost all the way down to the border. It's now an official FAA drone testing site. It's one of only 10 in the nation, and that means in addition to drones, Chula Vista's economy is about to take off. As drones start to fill the sky.
So, look, long story short there, I'll just fade that out and we'll cut back to the main studio. But the whole basic idea, everyone knows how drones work and drones operate. That bit's pretty easy. But working out how to have drones working in terms of autonomous flight or using systems where they can communicate with each other and with other general aviation aircraft and so forth, that's what they're testing in these areas, and particularly flight over manned population areas. I know you're not prepped for any of this, Greg, but let me ask you, what do you see as the fun stuff for Australia? Do you think we'll eventually get something like that here? Or?
Gee, I hope we do. It'd be seriously awful to be left behind in this area. But there's all sorts of innovations we could do with drones over here, particularly in surf rescue and stuff like that. Even medical abilities, fire rescue. The boundaries are endless there, and I don't know why we're not into it. And I can't believe Cyro hasn't got a place somewhere they're not doing anything with this.
Yeah, look, it's definitely, you know, it's something that we need to catch up on the rest of the world with. So, look, I think over time it's going to be needed, right? So everyone's afraid of drones going and dropping out of the sky on people and so forth. And, you know, we've got John. We've got the man back. Okay, I'm going to continue talking about this while we get him into the frame here. But, yeah, look, it's certainly... It's certainly needed to be able to explore what's going to happen next with this technology and make it happen in the country. So, look, awesome stuff there. The next story we're going to have a look at, and we'll play that out now. That's this is some testing of some, well, not some testing, some artistic use of drones. And this is happening in China. So everyone's seen the Intel stuff before. This is something that China has done as their version of that. Let's have a look. So I've just let that play out and we'll continue to let that go for a minute. We're just getting a little bit of the tech in the background fixed up at the same time, but certainly, you know, the China, they're definitely trying to give Intel a run for their money, and it's certainly very, very impressive what they've done there. Let's see if we've got John's audio in. Are you there, John? Not yet? Coming.
Hi, John.
He can hear you. There's nothing like live television to go and make fun for all of us, so... Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
I'm here.
Ah, there we are. We've got the man. John, thank you for that. And just to let everyone know, it's not John's fault. It's not my fault. We just had some fun with something in the middle today. And anyway, it's all good. So let's move on. Let's get John on the screen. Are you there, John?
Hey, hey guys. How you going, everybody? Good to see you.
Okay. Hi, John. Thank you for being here. And what have you been up to this week?
Oh, look, I just got to tell you, though, after watching that swarm technology, you know, and us trying to get ourselves going out over the net, it's mind-blowing. And, you know, even I've sort of been going to a lot of conferences lately and checking stuff out around the world that's sort of happening with autonomous robotics. But every time I see the swarm thing like that, and hundreds of drones, you know, flying together in synchronous harmony like that, I can't get my head around it. Of course, what you're looking at, which I remind everybody, is you're watching software. You know, these things fly on software. They really do. There are a number of fundamental components like that we enjoy, brushless motors, li-poly batteries that all make it possible. But in the end, good software is where it's at, and you can just see where this is going to go. It's remarkable.
Yeah. Okay, and speaking of remarkable, with all of the fun and games, the desk is a little bit broken there at the moment. I've got this miniature desk. We were trying to get all of the vision happening. It doesn't matter. We're going to leave it there as it is. But let me do this, just to show you, John, because you missed it at the beginning when the YouTube stream didn't come up. Can we just have a look at the new studio?
Oh, whoa. Yeah. Hey, that's good. That's nice.
So that's a sneak preview, and the reason why we're not using that yet, I've yet to go and do the screen geometry of the television there and there so that we can actually put stuff into those frames. But that's the studio we're going to be using going forward.
Oh, that's great. Looks good.
Yeah. Okay, look, let's get back to the news. So that was interesting, certainly giving Intel a run for their money. But speaking of interesting stuff, let's have a look at this. The DJI headquarters. So there's a draft set of architectural, conceptual videos that we're going to have a look at of what DJI's new headquarters is going to look like. Let's have a quick peek at that.
Is this a manufacturing plant, Greg, or is this...
not their manufacturing plant, no, definitely not.
Oh yeah, chopper on the roof. I got some money to burn up now.
So while that's going, I'll see if I can fix my desk.
Oh, here we go.
There we go. Now here's the interesting thing. They're actually looking at building twin towers and having a sky bridge between the two of them where they can go and launch drones within DJI's headquarters there.
Yeah, of course.
But have a look at this. This is beautiful. Sure, it is an artistic impression, but it certainly makes you hungry for this kind of stuff.
It's good. Where are they going to, is this going to be in Shenzhen?
It is indeed in China, yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll leave that video clip there, but certainly the full details, here we go. This is like, never mind. That's okay. So this is almost like drones coming out of the mothership out of, what was that movie? The one where they blew up the White House, you know, you see these ships coming out of them.
Oh, yeah, the Independence Day.
Independence Day, yeah. It looks a little bit like that. DJI's about to take over the world.
Yeah, Will Smith might come by and give him some grief.
Yeah. So certainly interesting. It's only an artistic impression of that, but it looks really, really cool. We're going to move on to something else now, and this is looking at a set of technology. It's a drone catcher, and I don't have the title up here. Let's just play the video, and we'll talk to that. So there's people every day updating the technology to intercept and deal with drones, and certainly they've updated the technology of this particular product. It's been around in prototype since 2015. And it was unveiled last year, but they've added some new features, a detachable power tether. So this is obviously going to be really helpful around airports or other sensitive installations, for example, prisons.
Yep.
So if it's got a power tether, it can stay up in the air 24/7. And then when it goes and finds an unwanted drone or a threat, it can take them out. But here's the other interesting thing that's happening at the moment. There's a bill before the US Senate at the moment to legalise the Department of Justice and Homeland Security to disable, damage or destroy a drone, or even to co-opt a drone for surveillance services in the US. So certainly some interesting stuff happening over there at the moment.
It's good. Yeah, it's just tracking. It's doing a visual tracking, which is quite different to the wireless telemetry tracking that we've seen so far. I mean, this is an advancement again. Anything that sort of got this type of AI on board with a camera is able to identify it as a quadcopter or whatever, just because of its motion and because of its audio signature, but mostly visually. It just fires a net at it, brings it down.
Yeah.
I spoke to Casa at length about this, Greg, and there's quite a significant legislative hurdle for that to happen in Australia. And just so you know, recently in the Commonwealth Games, the Australian Federal Police got permission to bring in a gun that would bring down drones that were flying around the Commonwealth Games. And you know, the security involved in bringing that in, it had to be signed in by the Australian Federal Police, operated by a person who was licensed for that particular firearm, if you like, and then used under their discretion. And you know what? When the games were over, it flew out the next day, and it was a contraband device, mostly because, like a laser of certain power, anything with that type of transmission power has to have various licenses, which it didn't have. But most importantly, the legislation in this country says that you can't interfere with an aircraft. And, you know, the quadcopters that we're flying, as Casa says, are just another aircraft, JAA they say. And you can't interfere with it in any way in terms of change of control, mostly because it's a safety issue. So the legislation to work around that, I know the bills are in the Senate in America, but there's a long way to go before this is passed, because all of a sudden, you know, it's going to open up legislation that allows you to interfere with an aircraft, I suppose. And perhaps there's a lot of aircraft, you know, we can see the future where these aircraft will be actually doing community service, medical work, deliveries, delivering prescriptions, anti-venom, you name it. The list is endless, and they'll be flying around doing their thing. So are we jumping the gun? You know, are we looking at bringing them down before we work out what they're going to be doing to do good work? So I think there's definitely
a reason to have counter-drone, counter-UAS systems in place, prisons, etc. You know, there's a need for it. In Australia, we don't have the legislation. That's what the US is currently doing with regard to their legislation. They have the same problem.
Yep.
Yeah. So we'll get there.
I think it is. But in the same time, the legislation will be quite tight, and they're going to allow law enforcement to use it. That's fair enough. You know, we've allowed law enforcement to use and exercise their rights to use firearms. That's always been controversial, and you're going to have the same sort of misuse with this sort of equipment as you are with firearms. Basically, that's what it is. It's the human factor. Perhaps the technology's got better solutions to sort it out.
Yeah. Okay, I've got one more quick story, and then we're going to move on. This one was from Bob Tate's aviation school.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought you'd get a buzz out of this. This is an uncontrolled runway, as he calls it. But I've never seen anything like it. So we got no audio on this one, and that's fine. There's nothing on the video clip. But okay, so far so good. The plane's coming down.
Yeah.
Have you seen this one, John?
No, I haven't. Another airplane in the way. Yeah, here we go.
There we go. We got a chopper landing at the side.
Yeah.
And then he's moving off.
And then you got another one. It might be Oshkosh. No, it's not really. But yeah, you got someone coming the other way. Yeah, that happens. Go. Yeah, yeah.
So
oh yeah, we've got someone on the runway there. That looks exciting.
Yeah, the reason why I wanted to show this is, you know, we've got to be mindful about what we're doing when we're flying near aircraft, and this is why. Yeah,
that's right. Well, they're busy. That's a busy. You can see all the parked aircraft down the back. There's obviously some kind of aviation meet, and you know, a lot of the things about flying light aircraft in this environment is situational awareness. When you're flying into a very quiet country airstrip, you don't expect to see traffic like that. If you're flying into an environment where there are lots of aircraft, you're looking for them, you manage it. I mean, pilots have been doing this since we first started flying airplanes, and it's called see and avoid. And now we have radio to supplement it. But would you believe radio is not the primary collision avoidance device in general aviation? In visual flying, see and avoid is still the main way that we separate each other. And because we know that, you know, the runway is your guide. If you're coming in towards a runway, someone might be coming the other direction. They'll be aligned with it at some stage. They'll be on it, or they'll be behind you or in front of you. So you know where to look. And radio supplements that in terms of broadcasting where you are and your intentions. When there's that many airplanes operating, it's better not to use the radio so much because it's confusing. You know, we look the way we manage cars every day in the same way. Stick to the rules a bit. Know where you look. Sometimes you'll see people where you don't expect them, but good airmanship always plays the best way to avoid problems there. It's a good clip. I like the clip though.
It's a great clip. And again, just a reminder, if you're near an airport and it's a small airport, it's an uncontrolled runway, there's no tower there.
Yep.
You've got to be ready for anything. So just be mindful.
It is. One of the main things that we had change in September 2016 here with our rule changes was the flying around uncontrolled airports now is permissible for licensed and non-licensed operators. And quad pilots, because basically the rule says now if you are aware or become aware of a manned aircraft operating in your area, then you are to keep separation, keep clear, land or not take off. And how you become aware of, if you're near an airport, you're aware they could be there. But obviously line of sight is the biggest, and I'll say that again to all our listeners, line of sight is the biggest safety mitigator involved in manned aircraft, because of course when you're flying FPV you can only see what the camera sees, you can't see an aircraft behind you. But of course when you're flying line of sight, you can see the airspace surrounding the airplane. So it's an easy deal, and why not? You can manage it easily.
Yeah, okay. Look, that was really interesting. Before we move on to our guest, Greg, we're going to just ask one question of Mel, and the question is, did we have an answer to the question for the prize pack this week? And Mel, I sent you the answer beforehand. Let's have a look.
I missed out on the prize. I was on the chat room though. My prize is I got to come along.
I sent the answer to Mel in an email before, so he's looking for it now. I see one person has put an answer up there. It's not the same answer that I've got here, and you know, hypothetically the edit could transition to different times. So the first time is the one we're looking for, and I don't have the answer there yet. So for anyone who wants to enter the competition, what you need to do is this. You need to have a look at our first video uploaded on the channel ever. Press the thumbs up button, put a comment in there, and lastly you need to find out what time is the edit between the first shot and the second shot in that video. First person who posts that, I'll send out to you a hat. and a backpack from D1 store.
Lovely. That's great. We got some prizes.
Oh, I've got a bigger one coming up.
I know you have. I've got a little birdie told me about that. That's good. So stay tuned.
Actually, let's do a sneak preview. This is the prize pack that we're looking at giving away in the very near future.
I can see half. Can you see that, Greg? That looks pretty good. Anything in a nice case, you know, is probably worth getting.
Yeah.
There we go.
So there's a DJI Osmo Mobile. I originally was using this to do a little bit of filming outside of the drone kind of things, just doing normal filming. And it's a beautiful, beautiful device. But when I was at D1 store...
We're getting the hand-me-down.
Yeah, you're getting the hand-me-down. I'm being honest with you. You're getting my old one. But I got an Osmo Plus. So for people... Yeah, why not? Look, make use of it. So I'm giving away the Osmo Mobile. And I'll tell you more about that later in the show. So you've got to keep watching, guys. Okay.
Yep. Good.
Okay. Moving on. I'm going to press the topic. And I wasn't ready to do that. There we go. So we've got our guest, Greg Hilton, coming and joining us. So hi again, Greg.
There he is.
Oh, no, the audio. See, we've gone and edited shots that were originally for you and put him in there. So we'll go and edit that in the background again. So what we're going to talk to Greg about is footage and, you know, his experience as a cameraman. Let's see if he's there yet. Hello, Greg? No.
Hello.
Ah, there we are. We've got you. Thank you.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
Is John there as well? No, we've got John in another shot. So leave that one live and put Greg into that shot as well so we can have both of them in a moment. It was planned really well, and I said at the beginning of this show today, everything is going to be perfect. Nothing is going to go wrong. Everything was tested.
He promised me everything was going to work.
It was. We tested everything. And then John came up and he was a black screen and no audio coming in. So it was one of those days.
That's when it started. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So
it's all
Greg,
your fault, John.
Okay. If we got John's audio back, let's have a look. You there, John? No. Okay. You're going to sit on the sidelines. It's all good. When you come back in, you'll be in. So Greg, tell me, you've been a cameraman for a long time. Tell me about your experience as a cameraman.
Gee, that's a long where to start. It's a very competitive industry. Everybody's trying to outshark everybody else. And of course, the standard broadcasting stuff like what we're doing here now is all set sort of pattern shots, and that's where you sort of begin. And then you get into things like music programs and doing children's TV and light ent and stuff like that. And where as the demand for the autonomy of the cameraman gets greater and greater, it becomes more and more competitive, and you're all trying to outshark each other for a shot, so to speak, so that your work is better than other people because that's what you're doing. But you've still got to fit in with the other 4, 5 or 6 guys that you're working with in that situation and blend in.
Yeah. So certainly we get the impression that it's the talent that's trying to get their shot in the camera, but certainly even the cameraman is trying to get your shot as the shooter.
Particularly with music programs and stuff like that, you're all looking for a different way to do it. And there's really probably only about 40 or 50 different shots you can do with a band. Yeah. But breaking that thing and making something else that nobody's ever thought of that looks good, it certainly keeps you in the limelight.
What's the most interesting or unusual or most well-known program that you were part of?
Gee, I did everything there. I did news, current affairs, I did sports, I did church services. I did Monday conferences. I worked at the Sydney Opera House doing the Sydney Symphony Orchestra operas. Oz Rock for Africa. I did a lot of stuff with music and light ant. I did a few dramas. I was on Palace of Dreams was another one that I did, and Oz Rock for Africa was a blast. That started at about 10 o'clock at night time and finished at about 5 or 6 in the morning.
So you went from there and you've retired, and when did you get into flying, and how do the two link together? That's what we got you here to talk about today.
Now I did a lot of work with late Gary Ticehurst when I was doing news and sport and stuff, and it was always so wonderful to fly in the helicopter with Gary. He was such a great pilot. And you really didn't have to do anything as a cameraman. All you had to do was poke the lens outside the window, and Gary would organise the shot and fly you in there. All you had to do was keep focus.
Okay.
And I learned a lot from flying with Gary, and I'm transposed a lot of that. As soon as I got a hold of a drone and started flying around, I thought, wow, this is right back where I was. It's fantastic stuff.
Awesome. So let's just see if John's back on the audio yet. We're going to play your video in just a moment. Are you there, John? Are you there, John?
I've got him.
You can hear him, I can't. Okay. Just try and send John's video shot live, see if that helps. You there, John?
Hey, there I am. Of course I am.
Yeah, there he is.
Okay, look, I'm going to go and, break the fourth wall. So over here, we're going to click on that, and we're going to click here.
Hello.
That should be working.
This happens every time you promise everything's going to work, Greg. You know that.
Okay, now let's go and put Greg back on the screen and see if that works. Are you there, John?
Yeah, I'm here.
You're there. Awesome. Are you there, Greg?
Yeah.
Right. We got everything. Okay. Now, let's continue and let's have a look at your video. So this was something that you shot recently. Here we go.
Yeah, I put this up because everybody finds a good shot, which that looks great with the sky off the water, and it's very rare that you get Moreton Bay with no wind in the water that flat and flying out to Green Island off Wellington Point. It looks nice. What most people do is they don't find a way to introduce it. So basically what I did was drop the helicopter down to about 2 foot off the ground, pull back and find a start position to fly into that shot, which introduces the shot. So here we go. Now I can cut into that or cut out of that anytime I like, or even jump cut it around with other things. But as you get across to there, then all you got to do is go up in the air and turn around to where you were, and you've introduced the image that you first started with.
Yeah.
I find a lot of drone pilots, they find a shot and then they can't think of anything to do. They just do a circle on it or do a line flight on it, and it just, all too often when you find something like it could be a view down a valley or something like that, just finding a way to introduce it, like get behind a bunch of trees and come up over the top, and there it is.
Yeah.
Here's another thing, just turning straight around from there and flying back to where I was. You'll probably see me sitting on the bench chair down there. I saw this bunch of lines with the jetty and the walls down there, and I thought, oh, this looks good. So I got right down low, bumped it out to the left a bit, and just went flat stick at the end of the jetty, and it looked great. I mean, it's just some of these little simple techniques of you're really moving the camera around. It's not such a bunch of static images. Like here we go. You've got the foreground rushing underneath and the background's coming up, the wall's going past it. You've got a sense of motion and you're going somewhere. And this one here was just another way of doing the same thing and introducing that original shot we saw at the beginning into something completely different, because this is on the other side of Wellington Point, where the jetty and the boats are, and you come up over the top just at altitude, and here it pops in the background.
Yeah.
And that really pulled your eye right out to that. So there's more than one way to skin a cat. Now, as a cameraman, you should be looking for at least 24 ways to shoot the same thing to give a good result, so that you've given the editor a choice of he can use this one, that one, or the other one. And that's the way it goes. Some editors that I work with, that particularly in news and current affairs, they just take the first thing they saw on the tape, chop that together, and that was it. And you go, well, what about all this other stuff I did down here? Oh, I didn't see that, you know. So sometimes you've got to sit with them and say, here we go. I remember doing the 87 Sydney Hardboat race when poor old Russell got washed off the back of Yahoo too. That's the first time they had a disaster in that race. And I probably shot about 20 hours worth of stuff. And when I got back, I just sit down and went through it and picked out the stuff that I wanted to do. And then gave the tapes to the editor and said, look, here's the in points and out points of stuff that looks good. And he put about 60% of that in there, which was good for me. I got a big neck in the show. That was a very competitive show to work on, because you've got about all the stuff Gary was doing in the chopper. You've got the thing at the start. And I was on the rescue vessel, Waiuna, or the radio vessel, I should say, Waiuna, and we were just doing the in and out schedules, but the sea was so rough. Some of the pictures I got out there was unbelievable. Yeah. And I was the only one on board that didn't get seasick.
Yeah.
They hated me. I went down for breakfast, had sausage and eggs, and they're all going, how can you do this? But it's just a matter of
so in summary,
finding things to do.
Yeah, finding things to do, but starting from somewhere other than where you're going to end up.
Absolutely. Once you've found a shot that looks good, there's 20 different ways to present it. Yeah. You can pan into it. You can come up and introduce it with altitude, or you can do all sorts of things, or hide it behind something else and then just fly behind at the side and then reveal it into the frame. There's just so much you can do.
Yeah.
That's a great am I still here, Greg?
You are here.
Yeah.
I just, Greg, that was great info about thinking about having a subject and having perhaps a dozen ways to do it, and your experience of seeing it in the helicopter. I mean, I've done a lot of man flying and some of it in helicopters. Do you think having that experience with your own eyes from those vantage points has obviously, you've said it helped you, because we're looking at a screen. Most people that are coming to aerial photography now are looking at an iPad to create it. Now, I always thought, you'd never shoot with the sun in front of you and blah, blah, blah. And then I did this job one day where I was shooting on the water, and I got all these magnificent sun flares in and out of the shots. And I thought, well, I never thought, those will be wrecked. And then when I'm looking at them back, it's great to have these flashes and movement. And I never, I mean, you would see that from the helicopter clearly, but the screen doesn't show this. An iPad doesn't show sun flare the same way.
Yeah, and look, I had the same thing. I didn't realise that in the footage I shot that day at Wellington Point that we just witnessed, that I could actually see the bottom of the water when I was flying across it. And sometimes the rules are there to be broken.
Yeah,
and if you're going to shoot something, don't stick with the rules. Get out there and do something different.
The photography rules anyway. Maybe not the flying rules.
Always stick with the flying rules, but photographic wise, always break the rules. Something different. Do something. There's one video I've got where I just one day decided to take off and spin the thing around as I was taking off, which has never been done before. And everybody went, wow, that's new. But I thought, well, it's not that different, But just do things that are outside the norm. Because when you get back to to edit. You can either like it or not like it, but if you haven't shot it, you haven't got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Greg, thank you for coming in today, and for those still watching,
it's a pleasure, John.
Apologies,
Greg. Yeah,
yeah.
It's an absolute pleasure, mate. Yeah,
and sorry for putting you on the spot at the beginning of the show. We just had the fun with the technology. Next week, what's the bet? Are you guys going to make a wager about next week?
Absolutely. I got $50 on it. It'll do the same thing.
Anyway, look, thanks again, Greg, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thanks, Greg.
It's a pleasure. Bye, John. Bye, everybody.
Okay.
Have a great time.
Thanks,
Fly
Greg.
safe.
Oh, some really good stuff there, mate. I mean, you know, a guy like that with the chops in that industry, you know, you can learn a heap from. And I think all professional photographers have so much to bring into this arena, because I mean I started with nothing in photography. I've had a couple of things that I look at still that I think, oh, that was a great fluke, you know. I always wondered whether professional photographers have that feeling too, whether they think, oh, look at that, that's amazing, or whether they actually have, you know. But I mean, as a musician, even I play things sometimes that I surprise myself. I think and photography has to have that artistic element to it. And when you're dealing with art, if you're not being surprised, you're not pushing it, you're not, you know, trying. I think Greg's message was really good there about, you know, the whole thing about reveal, about you know, what creates it. And I heard a photographer talk one day about shooting to edit, you know. So Greg takes a long shot of that beach run like that, or the thing, and he can cut in and out of it anywhere he likes, wherever he thinks a focal point will be. So he goes to the edit room, as all pros do, and they make their work come to life in the edit room. And I think, you know, probably a good thing to think about if you're really into aerial photography like this, that think about your editing skills. You're going to be doing it yourself. And again, take a few risks. You know, I'll tell you what, one risk I took one day, you'll love this. I'm doing a segment for 60 minutes, and we're up in the Hunter Valley shooting all of this bio marijuana at this secret location, and there was just acres and acres of you know, absolutely fantastic looking marijuana plants, and the story was all about medicinal marijuana. And I'd been flying atop of all this stuff and zooming around and trying to get some interesting shots I could cut in. Anyway, I took the airplane right down really low, and I had the airplane, the camera focused just on one rather large bud flower of it. And then as I hit the gas full tilt, I hit the yaw. And so the whole thing just spins. You get this spinning shot going up, you know, and the thing blurs when you look at it in the end. And because what's classic about it, which they used on the show, I was knocked out. I was just mucking around, and the guy said, "Of course you'd use it. You know, you were talking about pot plants. You know, you are spinning out, and I had no idea. You know, it was just one of those things in the moment that I shot, and it ended up going to air. You know, but look, it's. I think again. The photography thing, you can read books about it. You should know a little bit about what you're doing in terms of your light, your settings and stuff. But at the end of the day, what you got to do is get out there and just shoot. It's like like music. You can't learn it from a textbook. You know, you got to actually get out there, pick up the axe and play. You know, and that's how you learn to play music. That's how you learn any art. You know, just do it. So. That was great, though. It was interesting to hear a pro like that talk about that stuff.
I enjoyed talking to Greg before the show, and we've been a little bit scattered because of the technology. But, you know, look, the simple message in my head is, you know what your end product is. The question is, how do you get there? What's the journey to get there? Where do you start from? That's kind of my takeaway anyway.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I never know. I'm sort of saying what the end product is. Sometimes you get surprises, of course. You got a news clip up. Here we go. We're going on to DJI.
We're moving on. We're way behind. So DJI, we've all heard about the bigger picture that DJI is talking about. So that's been announced for the 18th of July, and everyone's wondering what the new drone is. But we thought we'd talk about some of the stuff we've seen recently on the net. And the first one, obviously, everyone knows about the Phantom 4 Pro version 2.
Yep.
And that's not the picture yet.
No.
My operator's ahead of me. It's okay. So the Phantom 4 Pro version 2, they had the controller, and the details for that were on the FCC website. But we also saw the Phantom RTK user manual.
Yep.
Which was the previous picture. Okay, so the Phantom 4 RTK user manual, and we saw that on the website recently as well.
Yes. Yeah. That's going to be exciting. We've been seeing images and leaks for that for a while. Some of the things we've just learned this week about that aeroplane to come is that it's going to have removable aerials, so you can unscrew. Because we've been, for most of our commercial aeroplanes on the Phantom 4s, we take the aerials out so we can use stronger high gain stuff and also use remote aerials. So if we're operating from inside a car, you can sit in the car with the control and have the aerials on the roof, etc. So it's going to offer that. It's going to have also a detachable battery for the transmitter, because those that go out and you work these airplanes, if you've got to do a 4 or 5 hour day doing survey, you run out of, you're sick of charging the transmitter battery all the time. So we're going to have swappable batteries. And also DJI are definitely releasing a base station for the RTK Phantom 4, because we've actually got and seen now online cases that you can buy for that base station for the Matrice. And we think, we're pretty sure that that same base station unit will be used for the Phantom 4 RTK as well. Again, it's scattered information, but you can buy it in China. I doubt whether everything would be Chinese. I'm venture to say there'll have to be some mods to the app for the RTK Phantom. At the moment, just to quickly brief for everyone, so you know, the RTK, real-time kinetic GPS. So what we're doing is there's GPS satellites are floating around in the sky above the atmosphere. The signals, time signals come through the atmosphere. They're distorted. Even though we've got very good positioning, the GPS, it was never meant to be super accurate, centimetre accurate. So what RTK does, real-time kinetics, is correct the GPS signals for atmospheric distortion. So we measure the atmospheric distortion at the place that we're flying, and we add those corrections, and we get super accurate positioning. Great for survey mapping. You can see RTK quadcopters will land on, 2 poles as big as their undercarriage. It's quite amazing how accurate it can be, provided you've got that GPS coverage.
So the interesting message there is super accurate GPS, and it's already available, not in Australia and not in the US, but it's already available in China.
Yeah, you can buy the Matrice 210 RTK. It's a bit clumsy. So what they've done is the RTK unit is built into the Matrice, but the transmission data for the data that corrects the signal is piggybacked with a data link, a dual data link. It's just very messy. I mean, what we've got though now is if you have to stream, firstly the vision, then you've got the telemetry of the aircraft itself showing its altitude and distance, then you've got the control interface, which is sending from the transmitter or back from the aeroplane tubing so that it can interact with the app. Now we've got RTK. So you've got 4 streams of data that you're trying to send simultaneously. Now, OcuSync has got the ability to do that, which is interesting. So that's why now have a look at what we're seeing. And there's a bit of guess in here, everybody. The Phantom 4 2 version 2 is using that OcuSync technology. So we think that the version 2 is the one that we're going to see with the RTK. So they have released version 2. They'll iron out the bugs. Then the RTK will come in with OcuSync, and we'll have our data streams. I mean, it's logical. I mean, they've made a few mistakes in the past. They've done it. They can't release something that's just not going to work. There'd be people that would argue that point, but most of the time, these products have for the technology that they provide are remarkable in terms of their reliability, and that's why DJI has such a high. You step outside of DJI, and you'll spend more than half your time in the hangar. Now that's what it is.
Absolutely. So just one last thing. So speaking of the linkages, we found another piece of info on the FCC website, which is multi-link, and we've got a little picture of that device.
Yep.
So we've actually got the proposed FCC label location and whatnot.
Yep.
Now, here's the interesting bit. I saw someone was actually showing an image of someone with something up to their head, up to their ear. Now, then later on, I'm looking at this thing, and that doesn't appear to be the same device.
No, it's not. Yeah, that's the dual link. From my thinking, that is the same link that piggybacks onto the back of the Matrice controller. And so if anyone's had a look at the Matrice controller, it's quite a bit different in terms of the way it's set up. It's a much more professional controller. Mind you, it costs you absolutely all eye-wateringly expensive compared to your Phantom. And look, at the moment, you know, for people that are asking the question, we haven't, where we've looked at the Matrice, at the moment, I think that technology is still maturing. It's a very good aeroplane in terms of being able to carry thermal cameras, has dual cameras, it's got a zoom camera, it's got all sorts of great toys in it. But the Phantom 4 Pro is still a go-to aeroplane for an all-round spanner. You know, if you've got to have one tool in the toolkit, that's the one you have. There's no doubt. Yeah.
Okay, look, we'll move on. I've got so many things that I did want to talk about today, but because of the bad start, we're not going to have time to get through all of them. Let's do aerodynamics.
Oh, good. Version 2.
Yep, there we go. And I pressed the button twice. That was my bad. So last week we did have a look at a little video, and I'm going to show that again because you weren't around last week, John. So let's have a quick peek at that.
Ah, yes, from NASA.
Yeah, look, it's an interesting clip and showing, for those who weren't around last week, the high and low pressures are the red and blues, and the other colours are kind of the air currents and whatnot that are flowing around as a result of that movement.
Look at that. The blades are in sync, so that's quite interesting because they're not normally. The engines spin at different speeds. But, of course, what you're looking at there is very controlled equilibrium.
Yeah, so that one's perfect hover, and it's a computer simulation, not a real scenario.
It would not. The airflow would look like that, but the propellers are constantly changing speed, rotational speed to maintain. Yep, for sure.
Yeah. So last week we spoke about ground effect. Today I thought let's talk about, and it's rather appropriate that you mentioned it, lift and drag and gravity and the whole balancing act.
Yep. Yeah, equilibrium in aeroplanes is obviously, part of Newton's laws. We have, in a normal fixed wing aeroplane, you can assume there are 4 main forces, but there is a fifth force. So giving you the fuselage here, we obviously have lift, which is pushing up, lifting the wings are lifting up. We have gravity, which is pulling the airplane down. So if the airplane's in level flight, lift equals the weight, we say. If the airplane is flying along at a constant speed, going that way, then thrust equals drag, which is holding the airplane back. And the fifth force we have is the tailplane. Now, the reason we have the fifth force is that lift and weight aren't always in a perfect straight line, and neither is thrust and drag. So what you have is you have these couples or turning moments. So what you try and do is to manage the turning moments so that the thrust line and the drag line turns the airplane one way, and the lift and weight turns the airplane the other way. Now, of course, as you burn off fuel or the weight changes in a fixed wing, the tailplane starts to add the fifth force of just continually balancing those rotational forces. Now, what happens is that in a stable aeroplane, the best way to have the tailplane pulling is down. And that actually is a more stable way of having the airplane. And the airplane, if the tailplane's pushing up, the airplane tends to want to do this and porpoise somewhat. Now, here's the thing though, if you're constantly using a downward force on the tailplane, that is not efficient. You know, anything that pulls the airplane down in terms of negative lift is not efficient. So what we have in the modern airplane and with computer flight is that we're able to adjust those forces so that the tailplane becomes neutral by either moving fuel around in the airplane or changing the drag line of the airplane. So sometimes the easiest one, of course, is to move the weight. And if you Concorde was a perfect example of that. So it would take off in subsonic flight, and then as you approach supersonic flight, you would pump fuel into the rear fuselage tanks so that you could make it more stable for supersonic flight. These days, airplanes like the F-22 Raptors and F-35A, all of the Joint Strike fighters and those things would not fly and not stable without computerized flight. As you know, most of our world is in the UAVs and quadcopters and so forth these days. So equilibrium.
And quad world?
Yeah, and quad world. So we are maintaining equilibrium in our machines these days with a computer at great speed, if you like, because, you know, they're inherently unstable, like a helicopter is as well, inherently unstable, wants to fall over. For most of its life, helicopters before stabilization control, the pilot was that, you know, computer, if you like, and a good helicopter pilot, you know, that could fly smoothly in adverse conditions was doing what the modern computer does today, which is still pretty amazing. You know, I've got about 5 hours in a helicopter, and I can tell you, after you've sit and tried to hover for about 10 or 15 minutes, that's it. You're knackered. It's just hard. And yet you watch guys, you know, Greg was talking before about Gary, who, you know, was quite a famous helicopter pilot, and with his experience and ours, and I was lucky enough to meet him one day and out at Bankstown, and yeah, he was just incredible in terms of you could fly out there. Those guys flew out to the Hobart flights and so forth, and were flying around in 70, 80 knot winds, you know, with waves going up and down. I mean, that's just, you know, and I'd argue that a computer would be able to do that as well as some of those guys could, you know.
Yeah.
So the rescue helicopter pilots, as you met Mark before too, Mark, you know, flies with us. It takes a great level of skill to do that and maintain equilibrium in a helicopter.
Yeah, we'll have to get him to come in one day and talk about the helicopter versus drone and his transposition of those two together.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like talking to Greg today about it's another angle of talking to Greg about photography and video, you know, and the skills that a pro can help you with. Helicopter pilot, the same sort of thing. And you know what they'll talk about mostly is the weather. And you know, if you leave pilots around long enough to talk about their experiences, most of the time, the weather is the one that will, you know, here we go, this went wrong, and guess what? It was blowing and the rain was going sideways, and, you know, like any boat story, you know, aviation is, you know, so much affected by the environment that you're flying in. And one of the things that you learn, you know, have that weather eye when you fly, whatever you fly, you've got to have that weather eye.
Yeah, and it's been awful weather the last week and a bit.
It has, you know, so we're going to see more and more aeroplanes that can fly in rain soon. We're seeing a few prototypes of splash drones now. And I still got to tell everybody, you know, if you're going to fly in the rain, you're going to have to be careful. You're going to burn more juice. It's going to be difficult to see. You know, as we move into flying in poor weather, I mean, I don't know what sort of photos you're going to take in the rain. I haven't worked that out yet. But the work that the autonomous aircraft are going to do flying in rain, of course, will come probably less piloted but more autonomous. Most airplanes that we fly these days are on autopilot these days in non-visible and non-VFR weather.
And I've cut you off there just to move on to the competition because I've seen a couple of people commenting. So we've got our winner.
Okay, good.
Just wanted to congratulate that. That was Steve Mack. So we'll send that to you, Steve. Hey, Chris, good to see you in the room. So I'll send that prize pack to you, but I want to talk about another continuation of that competition. There's two things. One, I've got another prize pack, the same, the hat and the backpack to give away. What I want you to do for that one, it's going to extend from here to next week. So watch the clock tower video on Oz by Drone. Watch it, like it, comment it, and there's a question next week.
That's one of mine.
That's one of yours.
I better have a look.
Your video, but the music, I did a little bit of creative license there,
That's right.
putting some good music to it.
Yep.
So again, everyone, simple. Watch the video, comment it, give it a thumbs up, and we'll have a question for you next week in the show. Now, as well as kind of liking it and commenting it, right? The big prize, I'll get it again. Where did I put it? There we go. The big prize, giving away the Osmo Mobile.
Yep.
That one's going to be given away when we reach 1,000 subscribers in the channel. Now, I know we're nowhere near that yet, but we've already grown 150 subscribers in the last few weeks, so we've done pretty well there. But the challenge is, could you share the channel? In fact, let's have a look at how many we've got now. I've got a cute
we're on the way.
that. Yeah, 214 today.
I better start saying something interesting so people start subscribing, I suppose, instead of, that's good.
Yeah, look, if you could share our channel through social media and other methods of getting it out, let people know, hey, I watch Oz by Drone on the weekend, on a Sunday or a Saturday, depending on where you are. The more people that you share it with, the quicker we're going to reach 1,000. We'll give this away. I will let you know exactly what's going to happen once we reach that 1,000 a little bit later.
Yep, great news.
Okay, moving on. So what time have we got? We've got time for one more quick segment. I will do...
Every time you go to push a button, I get nervous.
Yeah, well... Since we're Oz by Drone, I thought it only appropriate to finish with some Australian content today. So we're going to skip to section 7 to my operator over there. So this is some great content that I found from a guy by the name of Kirill Katlnets. One of them, we're going to have a look at two quick little videos, one shot near the entrance and one shot a little bit closer to me. Let's have a look at the first one.
Oh, the entrance, nice spot. Oh, yeah. Very nice.
So the purpose in sharing the Australian content, both because we're Australian and we like to share this with the rest of the world, but next week we've got a special guest coming in next week. Billy Kyle will be with us next week, and we've got to get ready with our Australian slang questions. So it's Stump the Yank next week.
Stump the Yank.
Yeah.
That's great. That'll be good. Now that's a better, notice Greg, as you're going this way, I don't like to comment on these things, but just a good point that we've been talking about pro video today. Make sure that horizon's level. On the opening shot, we saw a kilted horizon, and you can adjust it if you look in your software, but of course the wind is always going to make a difference too. So if you're going to flip around and then have a quick check of your horizon, run the aeroplane forward like that and make sure then, if you like, stop, adjust the horizon and get it really level, because often, that's a nice composed shot and it's reasonably level. I learnt this the hard way because for a while I was shooting really nice material, but you had to have your head on side to look at it properly.
Yeah.
And it's tricky. It's not something you think about while you're flying around and doing everything else, but now you can see, oh, that's good there, that's great, and look, lovely spot, isn't it?
Yeah. We'll just move to the next one quickly. So this guy's got two videos. All of these videos and the channels, by the way, are in the description today, so you can have a look at those at your leisure. So this is a little bit closer to me.
I know.
So heading down south, if you go through the Royal National Park, this is, I think, the longest bridge in Australia.
It is? Oh, there we go. We're legal now.
We're legal?
Well, we weren't when we started.
Were we over the top?
Over the top of the car, yeah.
Okay, well, Kirill, we didn't see that bit.
No, we didn't see that. No, I just mentioned it. I mean...
But it was all perspective, John.
No,
Come
well,
on.
and here's the thing, though, Greg. If he's not flying over 30 metres within a person, because the person's covered.
Correct.
So you're not breaking the 30-metre rule.
It's an insurance risk more than a
Oh, look, I just think
aviation
about it.
risk.
I think about it, but I mean, look, isn't that beautiful? Look at that. That's fantastic. And he's in a nice, safe spot right there. That's good.
Yeah. Look, we've gone overtime today. We'll leave it there, but just a reminder, so the competition, the DJI Osmo Mobile, please do have a listen to the Clock Tower video, watch it, like it, comment it. Those are the things you need to do. Next week, we're going to ask you a question during the chat on the live show. Whoever wins that, we give them the prize pack from the D1 store. Speaking of D1 store, I did some recording inside their shop, which I didn't put up today. I'm going to have that uploaded to the channel.
Oh,
so
that'd be
that's flying in their cage. So have a look at that coming soon. That's about all I've got. Let me just send a couple of messages on the screen. So first of all, as usual, YouTube, please do subscribe to our channel and give a thumbs up to the video. That'll help us, and that'll actually help you, because once we get to 1,000, we give away that prize pack and the winner could be you. Facebook, same kind of thing goes. Twitter. Now, here's an address if you want to send us anything. Speaking of which, I'm sending something to Ken Heron in the US. He's got the Candy Exchange program. So he's getting sent two things. One, a packet of coffee Tim Tams, and also a tube of Vegemite. But if anyone from anywhere in the world want to go and send us anything, feel free. There's an address there. And lastly, if you would like your videos to be featured, send an email to upload@gregkuhnert.com. Do not attach the video. Just send a link to the video content, and we'll include that at a future time. So that's about all for this week, John. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
And I'll try and put the hair that I pulled out at the beginning of the show back in, and they were numbered for just this purpose, as Daffy Duck would say.
Yep.
Okay. See everyone next time. Bye for now.
Bye-bye. See you next week, everyone.